Earlier today, CDPR reported their Q3 2022 earnings results, which were honestly pretty massive. This was yet another huge batch of good news for CDPR, and in many ways, this is the good news that matters, because this was centered around their financials, which shot up thanks to Cyberpunk 2077, and even beyond that, they talk a bit about the upcoming Cyberpunk expansion, a potential Season 2 of Edgerunners, which they've definitely talked about before, but they give a slightly different and I think more interesting answer here, and even some details around the next Cyberpunk game. Unfortunately, pretty much all of this is still a ways away. Night City's new district and even Starfield's upcoming galaxy won't be explorable for a while still. But you are able to immerse yourself in your very own galaxy today thanks to today's video sponsor, Galaxy Lamps. The Galaxy Projector can single-handedly transform the atmosphere of an entire room. And as cool as that is in its own right, it even gets a bit better because you can actually get the Galaxy Projector for 50% off right now for up to $60 in additional savings. But if you do need some more convincing, the Galaxy Projector has full RGB support, so you can have basically any color galaxy you'd like, but there's also things like brightness and intensity settings, which I'm personally a huge fan of. It gives you some flexibility, creating a nice relaxing atmosphere or truly light up a room so you could wake up feeling like you are actually in a galaxy. Your projector will even have support for Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant, and this really handy 3-stand system so you can control how the light is directed. So don't wait and go to galaxylamps.co/JuiceHead to get your own Galaxy Projector for 50% off and up to $60 in savings. But act fast because this Cyber Monday sale will only last for a limited time. Looking back at Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt Red describes how they were actually surprised by the response to Edgerunners. The response from fans and critics alike greatly exceeded CDPR's expectations, and they mentioned some huge milestones being carried over to Cyberpunk 2077 as a result of this, such as the game having over 1 million players each day for 4 weeks in a row, or even the recent reviews on Steam being 90% positive for the game, and even as of right now, it's even slightly above that at 92% positive, which is insane. Nearly everyone who played Cyberpunk on PC recently liked the game. But far more important was the financial side of this, where CDPR does report that this positive response to Edgerunners and Cyberpunk 2077's turnaround has led to the single best third quarter in the company's history. They describe how third quarter is typically the worst performing quarter of the year, but thanks largely to Edgerunners, this was the best quarter of 2022 overall. Although technically Q4 could beat it out as we don't have those results yet, but it seems pretty unlikely. And it gets even better because this also featured a 30% boost in profitability compared to last year, and a 100 million
Salati
increase in revenue. The boost in profitability is pretty huge. It basically just means that for every dollar that CDPR was earning, they were actually keeping more of it. Less was going to their expenses compared to this time last year. And like, sure, all of that sounds pretty good, but I think visualizing it really shows how massive this was for CD Projekt Red. The green is the profit, and as you can see, there is a lot of green on this graph. And it somehow even still gets a bit better. Of course, the massive popularity of Edgerunners led to a huge spike in sales, but CDPR also reports how now, several months later, even as things have calmed down massively, sales are still notably higher compared to pre-Edgerunners levels. So it's not like this was just a singular spike and then a return to the average, but this has raised that average for the foreseeable future, which I think actually makes a lot of sense. It feels like the perception of Cyberpunk 2077 in the broader gaming community really shifted during this period. The casual discussion around CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077 has shifted from being largely negative to neutral and even a lot of times positive now. It has taken years, but I think they've actually done a lot to repair the image of their company overall. And although in many ways it feels like this is just yet another positive article or just more good news we could add atop the pile that CDPR has been getting as of late, it really does feel like this is the big one. CDPR made a ton of money here, and it's things like this that will actually lead to changes with the company or affect future decision making, such as the Season 2 of Edgerunners, which no, it still doesn't really seem like a Season 2 of Edgerunners is happening. CDPR has maintained the stance of not really confirming or denying that specific plan one way or another, although we have heard from the Edgerunners producer how there was never actually meant to be a Season 2 that was not planned. But during the earnings call today, they did give a pretty interesting answer around this. Somebody asked if there would be a Season 2 to Edgerunners, and they mentioned how they definitely still have an appetite to do more in this medium. medium, and when they are ready, they will share more around that. And to me, their wording here makes it sound like something is definitely in the works, whether that be another anime with Studio Trigger, or maybe not even an anime at all. But as I've mentioned in a couple of videos now, these quotes from CDPR make it sound like it's not something they're planning in the future, but something they're working on right now, and they're just not ready to share details yet, which is very exciting because I think pretty much everyone would love to see more Cyberpunk 2077, regardless of which medium that is. But speaking of that, we also get some updates on the game. We get an updated employee breakdown where we could see that there are even fewer people working in Cyberpunk 2077's patch 1.7 than ever before. But they describe how the employees on Phantom Liberty are now just under 350. And if you look at this graph overall, the Phantom Liberty section seems relatively stable. There's been a ton of people working on this expansion for a very long time now. I mean, Fallout 4 was made by a team of 100 devs, but the Cyberpunk expansion has over triple that. There is still a bit of unknown as to when this is coming. When asked, CDPR just says they will talk about it when they are ready, which is honestly a great response compared to how they handled things with Cyberpunk 2077 originally. But also, we do have a pretty prominent date coming up with the Game Awards. Edgerunners is nominated for an award during this, and I think they actually have a pretty good chance at winning this award. So it could make a lot of sense for CDPR to have another trailer for Phantom Liberty be showcased here, but it also including a release date. It honestly seems like the prime time if you ask me. But really, we don't know. I always had this perception that CDPR would have a relatively short reveal to release window with Phantom Liberty. And it's been a couple of months of silence now since that initial trailer, so I kind of think it's coming relatively early in 2023, but at the same time, there has been an extended period of silence, so maybe it's coming a bit later in the year. Who really knows? Either way, I think the most important part around all of this is CDPR is definitely giving us the perception that they are letting Phantom Liberty get the dev time it needs and listening to dev feedback this time. So we're not going to get another Cyberpunk 2077 launch situation, which is very, very good. And I really, really hope this quote ages well. But even beyond that, we can actually see devs are being put more on their future projects. The two upcoming Witcher games got increases in the number of developers that are working on them, but CDPR also gives some pretty interesting details around the Cyberpunk sequel. They're going to be making a new studio in Boston and the broader CD Projekt Red NA to work on the next Cyberpunk game. And they mention how work on this is going to really accelerate next year, and specifically after Phantom Liberty drops. And it seems like we're really going to have to be patient here. They say after Phantom Liberty, work will begin on the conceptual stages of the Cyberpunk sequel, and they describe this as a pre-production in some ways. So it's not even like it's just pre-production, it's even a bit earlier than that. And based off this quote, to me it seems like the Cyberpunk sequel is something that is really just announced. It's not even like there's a small team of devs on it yet. That is only going to begin next year, which likely means we'll have a 5-year or more window from later this year or next year until we actually get to see the game and play it, which is not a good or a bad thing. It's just the reality of the situation, but I think it is important for people to control their expectations. Phantom Liberty seems like it will be the last thing we have for a very long time. Although fortunately, it doesn't seem like we're going to be quite at Bethesda levels of 15-year gaps between games. But they also make a pretty interesting announcement around another extraordinary shareholder meeting that will occur on December 20th. This is going to be a vote to reshape how their incentive program will work from 2023 to 2027. And specifically, this is going to be designed to incentivize top-tier talent to join the company and keep the talent they already have. So basically, they want to break into the North American talent market and try and recruit as many good devs as possible, and they are restructuring their entire incentive program to make this a reality, to make CDPR North America a very lucrative option, as well as, of course, actually keeping all of the people that already work there. This is pretty interesting to me, because you see a lot in the news, especially now that major layoffs are going on at some major companies, including some gaming companies. Meanwhile, CDPR is trying to keep all of their existing devs while also laying out plans to nearly double the size of their company over the next several years. There's no concrete numbers on how much they want to grow, but it's definitely going to be massive. They're basically just opening a completely second studio that will be very similar to the existing studio size. They talk a bit about Sirius, which is the upcoming Molasses Flood Witcher game. They don't actually share any details on this, but they do have something pretty interesting to say, where they mention, we need to prepare to communicate this product as it'll be very different to what we've released before. This has been how they talked about this game pretty consistently, with it appealing to a bit of a different audience than some of their other games, but I am still pretty curious to see what it looks like. If you look at the other Molasses Flood games, they're just incredibly different to what CDPR makes. And for me at least, I genuinely have a hard time picturing how the Witcher franchise fits in here. Maybe this is some kind of like 200 IQ play by CDPR. Make a kids game, so by the time the next AAA Witcher RPG comes out, all of those kids grew up and are appropriate age to actually play your AAA RPG. Although outside of some trailers and hopefully a release date for Phantom Liberty, the rest of the year is a bit unknown for Cyberpunk 2077. Mods are still booming. We've gotten some awesome ones as of late, and this fully interactive stock market mod is really cool, but there is also a critical tutorial that just dropped on animations. Animations are one of the big potentials when it comes to modding in Cyberpunk and one of the hopefuls for mod tools, so this is definitely one to look at. We still have this unknown situation with DLSS 3.0 and this ray tracing overdrive mode. This is supposed to be coming, but things have largely been silent from Nvidia and CDPR about what's going on with this. But what is perhaps the single biggest piece of news I'll cover in this video, Cyberpunk 2077's expansion, Phantom Liberty, will be paid DLC. It's shocking, I know, nobody could have guessed that or seen it coming. But thank you IGN for this eye-opening tweet and article. With that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, hopefully you found this video actually informative. But with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.